Day 12 of the Diddy trial was supposed to be quiet, just more paperwork, more motions. But everything changed when Eddie Murphy walked into the courtroom through a side entrance. The moment he stepped in, jaws dropped. The jury sat up. Diddy froze. Even seasoned lawyers looked confused. No one had expected Eddie to testify, not that day, maybe not ever. He walked in wearing a crisp suit, cool and collected, but his eyes carried decades of silence. He took the stand and said, "I've stayed quiet for years, but after what I saw, I couldn't keep pretending." That night changed everything for me. Eddie's voice was calm, but the room was dead silent. He told the judge who he was. Then he turned and looked straight at Diddy, sitting at the defense table. What came next hit like a punch. "I walked away from Hollywood," he said, "because I saw something I could never unsee." He took us back to 2006, a time when his career was hot against every day, offers rolling in, studios begging to work with him. Then came an invitation from a well-known producer for a quiet get-together in the Hollywood Hills. It wasn't on the books, Eddie said. Just one of those private events where big deals get made. He had heard about these parties. Everyone had. Diddy's legendary parties where phones were taken, cameras forbidden. It seemed normal at first, Eddie said. Music, drinks, the usual posturing. But when I got there, something felt ... wrong. He described a massive estate behind iron gates with fingerprint scanners. A valet in black took his phone and handed him a note. It read, "Tonight, just be who you truly are." Inside, it was quiet. Too quiet, like a church, Eddie said. But not holy, haunted. He saw familiar faces, actors, athletes, industry power players. But something was off. Everyone was acting strange. Not drunk, not wild dash, just ... off, like they were performing but not for fun, like they were being watched. Then he saw a man in a robe and a woman in stilettos disappear into a hallway. "That's when I knew," Eddie said. This wasn't a party. It was something else, something darker. He stayed a little longer to understand what was going on. That's when Diddy appeared. He walked up like we were old friends. Threw his arm around me and said, "About time you came home," but he didn't mean to Hollywood. He meant this. He does whatever I say. Then they stopped at a heavy wooden door. Diddy looked Eddie in the eye and said, "This is where choices are made. You want to stay funny and brokecore. Do you want to level up?" At first, Eddie thought it was a joke, but Diddy didn't laugh. Inside the room, Eddie noticed a camera set up on a tripod, visible through a small opening. I saw people go in looking scared. I saw them come out smiling ... or empty. Eddie backed away, pretending to need a drink. Diddy smiled and said, "No rush, we're all family here." Outside, Eddie tried to leave, but a woman at the door stopped him. "You done with the experience?" she asked, handing him a drink. No one leaves before the experience. That word stuck with him. Experience. Back in the lounge, his worst fears were confirmed. He was led to a dark room with candles, velvet curtains, and a long table of silver trays. Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, was there. Diddy stood at the head of the table like a host and said, "Tonight's about your potential. Greatness comes with a price." He gestured to a tray in front of Dwayne. A man in gloves lifted the lid. Underneath raw monkey brains, people laughed awkward, forced. Diddy told Dwayne, "Eat that, and the role is yours." Eddie said. Dwayne hesitated, then ate it. Diddy clapped. "That's what I'm talking about. Who's next?" Eddie froze. Then Diddy came over and asked, "You ready, preacher boy?" "I wasn't expecting this," Eddie told him. "Then why are you here?" Diddy replied. Eddie said, "That was it." He left the room, walking slow but sure. I wasn't scared of what they'd do to me. I was scared of what they could do to others. As he exited, Diddy said, "You'll be back. When you're ready to really make it." Eddie never came back. That night changed me, he told the court. I told him I was a man of God. I wasn't going to eat anything. I wasn't going to sign anything. And I sure wasn't going to sell my soul to belong to whatever that was. He looked directly at the jury. Diddy told me, "If you don't play the game plays you." And he meant it. After that, Eddie said things quietly fell apart. Projects he'd been promised, gone. Roles recast. His agency stopped taking his calls. People who Once praised him, suddenly called him not aligned. Aligned with what? That's what he kept asking. Aligned with monkey brains, with candlelit rituals. He stayed busy writing voiceovers, pitching ideas. People smiled, nodded, but nothing happened. It was like I was standing outside the gate, watching the world move on without me. Then he paused. They didn't cancel me. They didn't blacklist me the way people think. They just ... stopped calling. That's how the real blacklist works. No bang, just silence. Asterisk, you don't have to sell your soul in Hollywood. But if you don't, they'll make sure the world believes you never had one in the first place. Eddie Murphy didn't flinch when asked if he believed he was blacklisted. Yes, he said, not loud, not flashy, but with the calm, cold weight of someone who'd lived through it. That's how the machine works. It doesn't send warnings, it whispers. In boardrooms, at private dinners, behind closed doors, with fogged-up glass, someone leans in and says, he's not safe. He said, no, that's it. One no, at the wrong time, in the wrong room, to the wrong people. And the doors don't slam shut, they just don't open anymore, Eddie explained. How fast everything changed. People stopped calling. Studios said they were fully booked or suddenly had budget issues. Pitches he sent vanished into silence. He'd walk into meetings and get nods, fake smiles. Then nothing. You start to doubt yourself, he said. You think, maybe it's bad luck. Maybe it's just the market. But then you hear it. The whispers. The ones you're not supposed to hear. The court was shown one of those whispers, an email from a studio exec. Just for words next to Eddie's name, not aligned. Past. Eddie stepped up to the mic. I want the court to understand, he said. Hollywood's blacklist doesn't wear a name tag. It wears a grin. It shakes your hand while it buries your name. He wasn't punished for causing harm. He was punished for not letting it happen. He didn't play along at the parties. He didn't nod when he was supposed to. That made him a threat. He wasn't alone. There are others, he said. People who vanished the moment they said no. And we act like that's coincidence. It's not. Eddie's voice dropped. Hollywood doesn't just make movies. It makes myths. And the biggest myth of all is that success comes from talent. It doesn't. It comes from obedience. Then came the moment that shook the room. He said there's a list, not written, but real, and everyone knows it. The people you don't question, the names you don't say out loud unless you want to disappear. Diddy's on that list, Eddie said. So is Tyler Perry. Oprah helped write it. The jury sat up. Reporters hit their keyboards like a war drum. This isn't just about one man, he said. It's about a system that protects the powerful, that hides behind money, fear, and silence. Eddie recalled a warning from a fellow actor. You're crossing the line, man. They don't come back for people who cross it. That friend never called again. That's the price, Eddie said. You tell the truth, and you lose your circle. He showed proof, emails, texts, missed calls, all from the days after the infamous party. They don't tell you you're done, he said. They just stop replying. And then the hammer dropped. Diddy didn't blacklist people by himself, Eddie said. He had help. He had protection. He had a whole network. He stared straight at the jurors. This isn't just about what happened in that house. It's about how many people looked the other way, how many paid to keep it quiet, how many built careers while the rest of us disappeared. Then the court asked how it affected him. He paused, looked forward, his voice soft. It broke me. Not all at once, bit by bit. He talked about how he'd sit in the same chair for hours, not haunted by what happened to him, but what he saw happen to others. The fear in their eyes, the fake smiles, the people who thought they had no choice. My kids saved me, he said. Their laughter reminded me of what was real. He leaned on faith, not for answers, but for strength. I stopped asking why, he said. Started asking when. When would I speak? When would someone listen? When would truth matter more than silence? Eventually, he got help, therapy, spiritual guidance. He carried guilt for walking away and leaving others behind. Should I have pulled someone out with me? He wondered. But now I know, the most dangerous thing I did was say nothing for too long. The prosecution asked why he didn't tell this story earlier. Eddie's response cut through the courtroom like a blade. Because the people who own the microphones, they also own the secrets. He smiled faintly. I lost the spotlight, but I found peace. And that was the first real role I ever played. A man who wasn't pretending. So, why now? Because the walls are finally cracking, he said. And for once, I'm not the only one talking. He saw Cassie Ventura on the stand, her voice shaking. Then Monique, then a recording of Prince, years after his death, warning us all. That's when Eddie knew he couldn't stay quiet anymore. I saw what they did to the ones who spoke up, he said. They weren't just blacklisted, they were erased. But now, the silence is broken. And if someone has to fall next, he said, I'd rather it be me for telling the truth than stay standing on a lie. He looked at the jury again. This trial changed everything. Not because of headlines, but because of truth under oath, because people finally listened. He didn't want a book deal. He didn't want redemption. I want peace. And peace only comes when the truth is louder than the lie. He said his kids recently asked him why he stopped acting, and I couldn't tell them it was because I got tired. That wasn't true. I stopped because I wasn't willing to lose myself just to keep a job. Then he looked straight ahead. I'm not doing this to bring Diddy down. I'm doing this so nobody ever gets built up by him again. The judge called for a short recess. The courtroom stood as Eddie walked away, not just out of formality, but out of something heavier, respect. And just when it felt like the story had reached its final beat, came one last question. What's the one thing you want the jury and the world to take away from your testimony? Eddie took a long breath, leaned in. Hollywood doesn't run on talent, it runs on submission. You could have heard a pin drop. It rewards the ones who obey, not the ones who stand tall. And the minute you stop playing along, you're out. He didn't stop there. What happened at those parties wasn't some wild one-off. It was a system, built to trap people, fed by fear, covered in favors, and sealed with silence. He stared across the room. I saw grown men eat monkey brains just to land a role, and the ones laughing the loudest. They were the ones pulling the strings. He looked back at the jury. Diddy didn't build a kingdom. He built a cage, and most of us didn't realize it until it was too late. He paused. I should have said all this years ago, but I'm saying it now because what's done in the dark is finally stepping into the light. And then, the words that exploded across the country before the court even adjourned, don't protect the pretty lie. Let the truth be ugly. He stood. The court stood with him, and for once, Diddy had no words. Eddie Murphy, once the biggest star on the planet, had just given the performance of his life. Not as a comedian, not as an actor, but as a man who found his voice and used it.